ever wondered what game is worse than Club Penguin and Roblox? Your search ends here. It's Habbo Hotel. No other game housed more infamous scams and questionable roleplays, or let its team player base run illegal gambling cartels and adult nightclubs. Don't be fooled by its cute pixel art. Moderation was never an option on the hotel, and inappropriate content was the status quo. Be it 4chan raiding public rooms and closing pools in the least politically correct way, or something far more dangerous, like the countless child enthusiasts haunting Habbo's halls. Habbo's chat filter could only censor so much with boba. It was a ruleless dumpster fire, and kids flocked to the game because of it. Where else could you live out your edgy teen angst as a vampire overlord or a baby without parental supervision in the early 2000s? If Animal Crossing taught us anything, there's a black market running on real money for every single game. And Habbo was no different, but added soul-crushing virtual jobs for children as the cherry on top of its dark economics. However, with the internet's Wild West era coming to a close and controversies piling up, Habbo's reputation crumbled. Arrests were made, and failed improvement updates destroyed the game over 2 decades. But what exactly is Habbo, and why is it constantly asking me for my credit card details? Habbo Hotel, or later just Habbo, is a virtual world from the early 2000s, and still online today, even though everyone thinks it died years ago. Every hotel is a regional server like the US Hotel, and it's more of an interactive chat than a conventional game. So gameplay strongly relies on players socializing with each other, playing mini-games, and customizing the hotel rooms with furniture, which is conveniently shortened to Fernie and could only be purchased with real money. Unsurprisingly, this was the root of a lot of Habbo's issues. Yet Habbo fostered an extremely creative community that formed groups, or agencies, for roleplays ranging from businesses like Starbucks to modeling agencies and wrestling federations, complete with their own fitting headquarter rooms. Because everything on Habbo was perfectly themed, even community mods were called hotel managers. Its strong fandom kept the game alive through dwindling player numbers and drama. Be it nostalgia or the good sides of Habbo, fans used the game to escape from the real world, meet their soulmates, and freely express themselves with little judgment. Everything on Habbo was weird, and everyone was welcomed, especially if you paid the membership fees. So let's check into Habbo Hotel and dive deep into its insidious controversies and sometimes charming fandom. But wait, you wouldn't just visit any website without protection. Do you know how easy it is for your internet provider to spy on you? Especially when you're looking up Animal Crossing fanfiction about Maid Raymond and Anka, or questionable flash games for a video? Those custom ads are really out here telling everyone your darkest secrets. Well, thanks to today's sponsor, Surfshark VPN, that's a worry of the past. Because its browser extension and app encrypt all information between your devices and the internet. This means your data is safe from big companies and cyber criminals, even when you use public Wi-Fi. Super useful when you're traveling or when you have to join a Wi-Fi network quickly to download something for a mobile game. We've all been there. Don't even worry about Surfshark keeping tabs on you. They don't log anything, so your obsession with Twilight stays our little secret. Even better, Surfshark VPN lets you change your location to anywhere in the world. So if you're in the mood for a Ghibli movie but can't find it on US Netflix, just switch your account to Austria or the UK and evade those pesky geo restrictions. Surfshark has over 32,000 servers in 95 countries, so basically all streaming libraries are at the tip of your finger. And one account works for unlimited devices, so you don't have to pick and choose where to watch stuff on. Surfshark VPN also has a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you're only risking liking it a little bit too much. So head over to surfshark.deal/plushie, link is down in the description, and use my wonderful code PLUSHIE to receive 83% of your plan and 3 whole extra months for free. Thanks again Surfshark VPN for sponsoring this video. Before Habbo became Club Penguin's edgier clone, the original Finnish Hotel Goldfish was an interactive chat targeted at young adults. So shortly after their opening in 2000, they collaborated with a local dating site called Match'em. Players could go on virtual dates, play mini-games together, and even get intimate in romantic rooms. Turns out, Habbo GFs were an actual feature. Yet the hotel became surprisingly popular with children internationally over the course of a couple of weeks. In response, the developers attempted to make it more child-friendly, got rid of romance, romance, and formed the company Sulaki to shape Habbo into the game we love and meme on today. But they still kept their aggressive monetization and pioneered some of the controversial microtransaction tactics we see today. Everything on Habbo had a price, and in-game currencies like credits couldn't be earned by just playing the game. Only purchased via text messages, phone calls, and credit cards. Or, if you dared, by filling out shady surveys on third-party sites. It's a bit creepy that so many websites paid for kids' data. Of course, credits were only sold in bundles, starting at $6 for 56 credits and got slightly cheaper the more you spent, but they never gave you the exact amount you needed. You'd either have too much or too little for rare items. So to use up your change, you were forced to buy bundle after bundle until your parents busted you, or you finally caved and got the $55 for 6,030 credits deal. Because who wants to waste money? Avid fans needed the funds anyways because you couldn't even get cool room layouts without them. Decking out an aesthetic room or implementing a mini game that everyone wanted to play could easily add up to $100. Because the average Fernie was between $1 to $6, while different rarity tiers could set you back hundreds to thousands of dollars. After all, rares were supposed to be only released once, and some were available in limited quantities or exclusive competition prizes, like the adorable dark chocolate bunny, which only had 48 numbered copies and was already $100 during its release. Other robot dinosaurs that were given to Christmas contest winners and went for a cool $3,000 in traits. Both are so cute, I could squish a squishmallow. And you should squish the like button. Anyways, Habbo naturally re-released rares in different colors to maximize profit and skirt around its own definitions. Those little weasels. Even after Habbo introduced free currencies, you could only use them to rent basic Fernie for a few days or purchase seasonal items with novelty tokens and credits. Basically, Habbo fulfilled and popularized every predatory cash up cliche, so we should blame them for gacha games and crappy Genshin pulls. Still, the devs claimed you could enjoy Habbo without investing money, when really, fans had already formed a hierarchy based on presumed Habbo wealth, and the game was criticized for pushing hyper-consumerism onto kids. Since popularity was intertwined with owning items, players who paid between $5 to $13 a month for premium memberships like Habbo Club received exclusive benefits and were worshipped like celebrities. Why sit in a sad room alone when you can go visit Frodo in a roleplay room or get scammed in a casino? The game itself also manipulated players into buying virtual goods by telling them that everyone should own a pet and they can get theirs for only 20 credits, among other calls to action. Since around 60 to 70% of Habbo's hotel guests were minors during its peak and didn't legally own the money they were spending, the EU Commission didn't like that. Though the investigation into Habbo's commercial fairness didn't result in a ruling, direct exhortations to children are generally banned, which renders Habbo's monetization scheme shadier than the Shadow Realm. Yet somehow kids stealing their parents' credit cards wasn't that bad compared to other highly illegal measures, like in-game theft. In 2007, a Dutch teen was arrested and his 5 equally young co-conspirators were questioned for moving $6,000 worth of Fernie from hacked accounts to their own rooms. Allegedly, the group created fake Habbo websites to steal their victims' login details, which was a common scam in the game. A Dutch court convicted 3 of them for theft in 2009, arguing that virtual goods possess real value and crimes involving them should be treated like their physical counterparts. The Finnish police also investigated around 400 other reports of players losing items worth $1,200 to a similar scam. After searching 5 houses, 1 minor was trialed for 358 cases, while the 2 others were convicted for the remaining thefts in 2012. Fernie is serious business. Even more Fernie heists were never prosecuted, despite Sulaki reporting them to law enforcement because many countries don't protect game assets. Habbo's story gets pretty grim here, so trigger warning for child enthusiasts. If you're uncomfortable with this topic, please skip to the timestamp below. I promise you won't miss the drama, just the nasties. Receiving credits and Fernie as gifts was a more peaceful way to become a big name on Habbo, but often entailed adult services. Offering relationships and intimacy in exchange for game items is pretty common in MMOs, and usually ends with someone getting scammed. RuneScape's buying GF meme didn't come from nothing. However, on Habbo, teens were doing it on an extremely large and organized scale. Though some fondly remembered their first innocent virtual romance where handholding was already scandalous, or their fake Habbo partners spoiling them with Fernie, others received a daily credit allowance for cybering with their sugar parents. If lying still and looking dead inside on virtual beds while role-playing the dirty wasn't enough, they'd hop onto voice and video chat services. This wasn't only dangerous, but outright against TOS and the Habbo way. Yet, it didn't deter players from running successful adult clubs with multiple employees. For credits, customers could request uncouth dances, private kissing booth sessions, or enjoy the inappropriate ambience. Personally, I prefer Habbo's Robo-Cafe over rooms lined with beds and seating for spectators. But hey, maybe they are comfortable. Yet these rooms weren't an obscure underground thing, but some of the most popular places in every hotel, with hundreds of players visiting them daily to boba for Fernie. Sure, Habbo was a truly cursed dumpster fire, but it was the community's dumpster fire, and it meant so much to countless of players. So when Channel 4 threatened to take it away in June 2012 by reporting on Habbo's adult content infestation, the fandom snapped. The articles detailed undercover investigations of a reporter posing as an 11-year-old girl, and all the inappropriate chat and webcam requests she received within minutes of logging into the game. Players even stalked her throughout the hotel and harassed her when she said no. Sadly, her experience wasn't an isolated case of bad internet luck either. She started the investigation solely because elementary school kids shared their similarly awful encounters with her. Originally, the expose was meant to talk about peer pressure, bullying, and kids and teens interacting with each other in uncouth ways with little intervention. But the story took an even darker turn. Digging deeper, news outlets found multiple accounts of child enthusiasts using Habbo to find victims. A year before the expose, a 21-year-old from the UK convinced his 80 victims, who were all between 10 and 14, to explicitly webcam with him for Fernie. He then recorded some of the sessions to blackmail the children into committing more intense acts, and was sentenced to 7 years in jail. Another 24-year-old monster was banned from children's websites and jailed for 2 years in 2012 for touching himself while video calling to minors he met on Habbo. But this still wasn't the end of child enthusiasts looming in the hotels. In 2017, a 25-year-old was charged with soliciting multiple 11 to 14-year-olds over the course of 8 years via the game. Fans even warned each other against players with similar reputations who never got caught or banned. The inevitable mass outrage caused multiple sponsors and investors to drop Habbo. Gift cards got removed from large UK retailers like Tesco right after the news broke, and even shareholders that initially swore loyalty to Sulaki distanced themselves the next day. Interestingly, Sulaki knew about the impending scandal at least a week before and notified their business partners. But because they didn't change anything, one of their largest investors, VC Balderton, cut their multi-million-dollar funding despite sponsoring other child-friendly games like WeWorld with the exact same issues. I guess the money didn't go into child safety. As Sulaki's CEO, Paul LaFontaine, tried to defend Habbo's moderation by tweeting that staff already responded rapidly to players requesting support via the call for help button, he revealed that only 225 mods allegedly tracked 70 million global chat messages 24/7. That's not nearly enough. And players coming forward that mods either ignored them or told them to stop abusing the help features and just block offenders proved it. Besides overworked staff making mistakes, Habbo's automated moderation tool didn't flag or censor nearly as much inappropriate content as it should. Its filter that replaced every bad word, website link, or personal information like phone numbers with boba could be easily tricked with dashes and accents, or triggered accidentally because assumption has S in it. Early Habbo also banned anything phonetically resembling naughty words, so pizza was censored because of piss. But in 2008, Habbo even allowed players to deactivate the filter and only punished excessive cursing. So meetups and cybering were seemingly okay until Sulaki realized their mistake. Good call. Nonetheless, Habbo won multiple awards for safety from the EU Commission and online child protection organizations prior to 2012, which aged like milk because the Commission's vice president threatened to shut Habbo down and make other children games feel the heat. In Habbo's defense, they collaborated with multiple charities like the Red Cross and UNICEF to educate teens on sensitive topics and internet safety, which is arguably as important as moderation. Like everything on Habbo, the branding for the Infobus hosting these events was on point, even though the IRL version looked like a free candy ban. While security and industry experts weighed in on the scandal and called Habbo's lack of moderation a disturbing oversight, fans rallied against media outlets. Though most agreed that something needed to change, they were furious about the game's misrepresentation and thought their parents were overreacting. Specifically, they accused Channel 4 of biased journalism because, to them, adult content was an unsavory part of Habbo that most simply avoided, and only thirsty teens sought out to explore their relationships and identities. I can kind of see where they were coming from, because one report was oddly fixated on Habbo's childish aesthetics and called the avatar satirized cartoon children. Which makes no sense unless everyone who likes pixel art is either a child or a predator. Also, the interview with Moshi Monster's moderation lead struck me as weird. She punched down on Habbo while insisting that Moshi isn't a competitor, even though they literally were, and Moshi had illicit content and child enthusiast scandals right before and after Habbo's implosion. Don't worry about our traumatizing monsters, our rivals have more. Discussions were very heated on both sides and got even messier once fans harassed and threatened Channel 4 employees who weren't even involved in the story. Adding fuel to the trash fire, one program editor was called a child enthusiast because Paul tweeted at him in response. Paul then also claimed that other news outlets offered monetary rewards for anyone telling their horrific Habbo tales without proof, which started another witch hunt. Well done, Paul. Contrary to his promises, inappropriate content and rooms were still up the day after Channel 4's reports. So Solaki pulled the plug on Habbo's chat function and muted the whole game while they scrambled to find solutions. However, Habbo was built around socializing, so the decision completely stifled the game. In response to the Great Mute, players gathered in the now silent hotels with candles to show their support for Zulaki and protest the negative press for hours on end. Staff appreciated the peaceful candle vigils by handing out special badges or trophies and increasing the capacity of popular rooms like the Welcome Lounge and Theater Dome to hold as many players as possible. Also, most players coordinated via Skype, MSN or popular fan forums, so muting the site didn't stop anyone from talking to each other. It just made it more inconvenient. 2 weeks after Paul dramatically announced the Great Unmute and collected player feedback to improve Habbo, along with tons of positive testimonials to prove the game wasn't a cesspool, chat gradually returned. At first, messages were limited to predefined phrases, but it being Habbo, the system didn't work well and censored words too eagerly. They really pulled the Club Penguin. Almost a month later, free chat returned, but players had to earn their free speech privilege by reading through a booklet version of the Habbo way, taking a slightly weird safety quiz, and chatting in penguin mode for a few hours. One violation of the Habbo way, and they had to repeat this process from the start to responsibly resocialize, which probably was a lost cause in most cases, just look at the chat logs. Although fans and staff celebrated the game's comeback with hotel-wide parties, trophies, and special challenges, the aftermath was rough for Habbo and its competitors. Games like Moshi Monsters, Stardolls, and Tunics were suddenly under extreme scrutiny. Thus, Disney poured $4.5 million into Club Penguin's moderation and a safety awareness campaign. But we all know how that turned out. Following the Great Mute, Habbo was never the same again. It completely lost its cultural impact, along with more than half of its 9 million active users. So Habbo did what any struggling social website does: rebrand itself as a third-party gaming platform for teens, a la Roblox and Meta, complete with heavy monetization. Sadly, the Game Center never featured more than 10 games and shut down in 2014 due to a lack of interest. It didn't attract new players, was privy to credit exploits, and fans felt like it ruined Habbo's immersion. And honestly, they were right, because none of them resembled Habbo's art style or had anything to do with the game. What is this, bootleg Mario Kart? Thanks, I guess? What everyone actually wanted back were old games like Lido Diving that got removed during a client update. In the long run, the scandal didn't fix Habbo's issues, and inappropriate content weaseled its way back into the game as moderation declined. Habbo has always relied on volunteer programs for unpaid moderation duties, but reduced their abilities after the first iteration. The Hobas abused their power for unfair advantages and snooped around chat logs. Because for some reason they could see and export everything you did, and it took Habbo multiple years to realize that's a security issue. What the hell? So instead, Habbo continuously shrank its mod team and replaced them with Tuat's community Sift moderation software in 2015, which players heavily disliked because it missed illicit content, sanctioned innocent players, and couldn't replicate the charm that mods added to the hotel. Also, if you were looking for proof that all questionable kids games are somewhat connected, Community Sift was made by two people who worked on Club Penguin and is used by Roblox. Its gambling ban, on the other hand, was a bit more effective. In August 2012, the Danish Ministry of Taxation ordered Habbo to deactivate randomization items in their country, or else they'd be shut down. Players had been using Habbo's items of chance to run underground casino rooms where anyone could bet credits or Fernie on the outcome of minigames. Since both had monetary value and could be exchanged for real money on third-party websites, Habbo was accused of facilitating underage gambling, which is highly illegal in most countries. Gambling was a huge part of Habbo's culture, culture and attracted countless teens who bet away their allowance or earned real money from their gambling empire. Casinos had their own ecosystem, with room owners renting booths to dealers to play against customers and often change the odds in their favor. But don't let yourself get discouraged if you were an unlucky loser. Always remember that 99% of gamblers quit right before their big win. To bet on a game, players usually gave dealers wares up front and only got them back along with the prize if they won. However, some dealers would just kick winners to keep their items and avoid payouts because they didn't even own the advertised prizes. But even before the fun part, you could get scammed. Entry fees to casinos were quite common, so random players pretended to collect them. What an evil free money hack. Many popular games, like Habbo's version of blackjack and poker, required random number generators, or a couple of dice. So when the Holodice Dice Master and Wheel of Fortune Fernie were removed from Danish Habbo, its community left with them, and the hotel turned into a ghost town until it closed. The other hotels weren't safe either. 2 years later, Solaki restricted the number of randomization items to 3 per room. If you exceeded that limit, all your dice would be disabled. So almost all betting and claw machine games were impossible to implement, and casinos could only house one simple game at most, which wasn't really comparable to the lavish maximalist lifestyle of Habbo casinos. See those cute elephants? They're at least $50 each, and the seating space are easily 100. Less surely wasn't more here. As players panicked about a second Habbo apocalypse, Habbo banned anyone running a casino, revoked trading rights of gamblers, and flagged conversations about gambling. In response, affluent players scrambled to sell rares that were predominantly used as status symbols in casinos, like dragon lamps, dino eggs, and thrones. If you could fill your room up with those, you could handle high-stake bets. But following the gambling ban, their values fell from hundreds of dollars to almost nothing overnight. Of course, randomization items became immediately worthless and couldn't even be sold anymore, so Habbo released the Ferniematic recycling feature to convert them back into credits. But unfortunately, the values didn't add up. At least anyone who missed getting scammed at casinos could relive that feeling once more. Sticking to ancient Habbo tradition, players protested the ban in popular public rooms, only this time without staff support, because protests are only allowed if they are convenient. Jokes aside, gambling shouldn't be allowed anywhere, especially near kids, so I get their strict stance. Yet Habbo overlooked a blatant loophole. Casino-themed rooms were still allowed, and Wyatt Fernie works like Redstone in Minecraft, meaning players could automate and program any process they wanted with it, including homemade randomizers. Obviously, re-implementing a casino from scratch was still banned, but the floodgates had already opened. Instead of gambling halls, people built forbidden arcades with highly complex luck-based games. How could they ban them if they can't find them? But Habbo had still another gambling beast to slay. Starting in 2013, hotels released crackables, which could be used to turn into another item. In other words, loot boxes. Though crackables mostly resemble seasonal items like Easter eggs or followed the classic mystery box theme, some stranger designs like the Divine Duck and Fallen Angel series joined the ranks over the years. I thought these were Fernie at first, but no, you can actually get aesthetically similar items from them. It might just take you multiple steps, many tries, and a ton of credits. If you wanted to complete a Halloween set, you'd have to get the Cursed Pandora chest first, which had a 5% chance. Your shot at the correct monster was 25%. So long, Robocat. Crackables usually sold for $1 to $10 on release, but popular ones went for more than $500 on the aftermarket. While you could turn a profit, you could also get something worth 2 credits. Even more so than Pokemon cards, they're a bad investment if you open them. However, after Belgium, France, and the Netherlands banned loot boxes in 2018, all crackables vanished from the affected hotels. Though you could only purchase some of the items through the catalog, the system was way fairer and frankly safer. Just like betting on Fernie, loot boxes are gambling and share all the dangers associated with it, especially when items have real-world value. Their mechanics make them extremely addictive and can introduce young players to gambling without them noticing it. So they keep on buying loot box after loot box to the brink of bankruptcy because they want that big choosy price. Funnily enough, Animal Crossing Pocket Camp was removed from the Belgium App Store for the very same reason. It's probably the last game you'd associate with illegal gambling, but players could receive exclusive furniture lines from fortune cookies. I always knew Timmy and Tommy had a dark secret. After the fall of Habbo's gambling culture, trading and the black market remained Habbo's last bastion. Pretty early on, players developed a stock market around rares and invested real money. Just like in any MMO, old and exclusive items got increasingly valuable as more players joined the game, while trends or bans added fluctuation to the market. Because items were intrinsically linked to real-world values, most profitable trades happened on underground Discord servers and forums. Instead of spending $6,000 worth of credits for a Moody machine, you could buy it for $700 on the black market. This also extended to credits. Rather than painstakingly scavenge for specific items, players could purchase heavily discounted credits and buy Fernie through in-game auctions. Sadly, those credits mostly stemmed from hacked accounts, but that's nothing new to MMO veterans. You can't run a successful underground market without scams or the risk of getting banned. Because of course, selling items for real money was against the Habbo way, and illegally obtained items were treated as contraband. But that never stopped anyone in any game. Just look at the Animal Crossing black market. Yet Habbo's Fernie exchange was out of control and moved thousands of dollars every day. I kid you not, people traded on Habbo as a job, tracked rare values for hours, and even put themselves through college. So to curb their money FOMO, Solaki introduced novelty currencies that you could only earn by buying credits legitimately in 2012. If you wanted special Fernie, you'd have to give Habbo your nuts, or any other seasonal currency they came up with. Illegal activities aside, normal bartering was still extremely popular and one of Habbo's core mechanics. Solaki even encouraged it by writing articles on how to read the market, turn profits, and become a Habbo mogul. Meanwhile, the fandom had its own item classification system based on rarity and prices. Super rares would cost more than $50, while Ultra and Arcane rares went for more than $500, and the owners were publicly documented. Depending on the color, the item could be rare or extremely common, which didn't help with trading scams. Good luck telling pink and fuchsia ice cream machines apart. I can't because I'm colorblind. Due to Habbo's popularity and its black market, the game was often used to cross-trade between other MMOs, like RuneScape. So whenever updates negatively influenced the Fernie economy, many players left. Like in 2006, when the rare bubble burst because Habbo released too many rares, and fans resorted to club sofas and thrones as a secondary, more stable currency. Or when fansites suddenly treated items as super rares and caused mega inflation, along with conspiracy theories that they pumped and dumped the Fernie market. However, nothing compared to the hotel merge drama. Since Canadian Habbo was struggling, Solaki wanted to merge every English-speaking hotel in the spring of 2010 to avoid their previous mistakes. They had already lost the Chinese hotel due to low player numbers, and almost none of its users migrated to other servers, which killed the remaining community. At least, there's the physical Habbo hotel. Though the idea didn't seem bad at first, the fandom spiraled. People wrote appeals into staff guest books, rallied community managers to corner Solaki, and of course, protested. Some even convinced others that it was just a bad April Fool's joke. Fans really went through all the stages of grief here, and for good reason. Apart from some technical hiccups like all photographs irreversibly disappearing from the game, because it's not like players kept them as sentimental memories, Habbo's economy was all over the place. Rares had vastly different prices and exclusivity levels on the UK, Australia, and Singapore hotels. When all of them got mushed together, some items lost their value while others skyrocketed. To stop a mass exodus, players received compensation Fernie on merge day. In typical Habbo manner, the item's rarity depended on your loss, so carp fountains had both common and extremely rare colorways, while the yellow ultramarine was elusive. Yet their efforts were in vain. As wealthy players cashed out, whole Fernie lines lost their rare status. The fall of the status of most ice cream machines and club sofas especially was the final straw for many diehard fans. But merge issues also affected the community directly. Since every server was region-based, every hotel had its own culture and local references, which were completely ripped apart. Regional businesses like radio stations and shops used to host events in the game before, but stopped because it was harder to reach the audience. Following the merge, minorities and different cultures were even more harassed than before, so a ton of players didn't activate their account on the international hotel, and Habbo ended up deleting them along with their belongings. Although some fans rejoiced that rare usernames were up for grabs again, the deleted Fernie was lost forever, which rendered some items unobtainable. Almost no players from Habbo Singapore moved to the English server, so their exclusive rares like the pink ice cream machine suddenly cost $1,200. To no one's surprise, rumors of a global merge became Habbo's boogeyman. I mean, Austria, Germany and Switzerland suffered a similar fate in 2010. Deutschland ruiniert halt immer alles. Also, Swiss Habbo supported the country's 4 languages, so merging it into a primarily German hotel was a positively genius move. Over the following decade, Habbo was slowly dying, and fans blamed it on a multitude of reasons. Habbo's late adaptation to mobile, other MMOs like MapleStory siphoning away players, or its fanbase simply growing up and losing interest interest in an old game. I played it as a kid, and honestly, it became one of those hidden memories that randomly get unlocked and then give you an existential crisis. No MMO is fun without a large player base. So when the world shut down in 2020 and people fled to nostalgic games, Habbo, Neopets, and all the other childhood classics experienced a renaissance. Where else could you host a virtual college party? Zoom's no fun, and Animal Crossing only allows 7 visitors. With the return of veteran players, impossible to find items were suddenly available again, and the game's stagnant economy boomed. But as its active player base almost tripled, Habbo decided to mess it up again. At the end of 2020, Adobe's Flash Player wouldn't be supported anymore, so Habbo needed to switch clients. The whole fandom was excited about the game's modernized revamp, until news leaked in mid-October that bartering would be removed along with the old engine. At first, Habbo's black market imploded. Sellers tried to recoup what little investment they could, so they undercut each other's offers. What's the point of keeping something you can't sell? Collecting? Who would do that? While some lost more than $10,000 to bad trades, scammers profited like never before. Players claiming they didn't receive items or flat out refusing to pay was more common than finding a legitimate trade. "I'll totally pay you back, I just left my wallet in my room." Even previously trusted traders who forged their reputation over multiple years used their status to pull bold exit scams. And if they didn't scam anyone, someone was sure to impersonate them. It's Habbo after all. As people panic exchanged credits for money, a handful of players dumped all their gold bars at once on the black market. One gold bar always equaled 50 credits in the game, but their unofficial value instantly tanked from $4 to 1 and took the credit dollar exchange rate with it, because the black market now had a surplus of multiple million worthless tokens. Shortly after, Solaki confirmed more details of the new Unity client, like a reasonable 59% non-refundable handling fee for putting expensive items on Habbo's marketplace that you had to pay up front, and a subtle 80% wealth tax on your virtual bank account. Thousands of players stormed the hotel to protest, wrote #SaveHabbo rap songs,
"There's something that we've been really wanting to get off our chest. Everybody was excited for Habbo 20, now it's a mess,"
and held graveyard wakes to mourn the game's death. Or went out with a bang and threw end of Habbo gambling parties with $2,500 prize pools. Who could have guessed that fans would be mad about removing gifting and moderation features when all their gameplay revolves around that? Certainly not Solaki, because they blocked anyone criticizing them on Twitter for being greedy, and even banned players from the game when they posted screenshots of the protests. Nothing screams we care about our player base more than permabans. Although Solaki paddled back on some decisions like the insane tax system and allowed private sales to your friends list, it didn't save them from the fandom's wrath, because right before Christmas, the open beta released in a disastrous state. Rooms with loads of Fernie had unacceptable performance issues, items glitched, and many features were simply missing. It was pretty apparent that the game was unfinished, which is scary considering it should have replaced Habbo, and staff outright confirmed it. They allegedly started development too late and miscalculated how long porting 20+ years of content to Unity would take. But everyone knows game development is lightning fast, right, Nintendo? Even more concerning, game testers allegedly couldn't access bug reporting tools for the first couple of months, so they couldn't tell anyone that they weren't able to log into the game. Nah, that's probably fine. Who needs playtesting anyways? Seeing how Solaki was destroying an integral part of every millennial's childhood and arguably over 20 years of archived internet history, the community planned to show them how miserable the game would be without players, because that's what happens when you ignore feedback for decades. So after they announced a 72-hour walkout in an open letter signed by major agency leaders, Habbo came to a grinding halt, and Solaki couldn't care less. Until January 16th, when Quackity, a content creator notorious for raiding Club Penguin, Toontown, and other kids games as meme pop culture figures like Vsauce Michael,
"Hey, Vsauce Michael here. Where are your fingers?"
targeted Habbo again. His previous raids regularly forced the hotel to shut down, disable registrations, and IP ban him during his stream. And this time was no different. Within minutes of his stream, #NotMyHabbo was trending on Twitter, and multiple thousand new registrations crashed Habbo's servers. As soon as the game was back, the raids returned too. Everyone flooded the hotel dressed as Hillary Clinton, don't ask, it's a Quackity thing, and Pitbull because it was his birthday. The game was already lagging from all the players, so to siege the hotel completely, viewers switched rooms as fast as possible and spammed dance emotes. It was a complete chaos, but exactly what Crockedy needed to open negotiations with this infamously polite tweet. Because it's not blackmail if you're respectful. Since Zulaki didn't react, his chat crashed Partnet Games and spammed Habbo's community tab with raid screenshots until the site went down. Again, totally not extortion, they could have stopped it at any time. In the end, Crockedy's chat closed the pool, and over the course of multiple weeks, Zulaki suspiciously reverted most of its unhinged changes. Even better, they released a downloadable Flash client, which they should have done from the beginning. But as you know by now, common sense and Habbo aren't really on speaking terms. And the damage was already done. Most fans had either switched to RuneScape, developed their own game out of desperation, or went rogue and joined a Habbo clone like High-Rise. It's literally the same game but reskinned with Brett's aesthetics. Zulaki even developed its own copycat game, Hotel Hideaway, which is basically 3D Habbo for adults but without a soul or community. So Habbo followed the advice of any struggling nostalgic game, Neopets, and released NFTs. If you're not familiar, NFTs are a scam, just ask Logan Paul. I'm kidding, but what they actually are references to digital assets like images on the blockchain that you can own, sell and destroy. But you're not owning the actual content, so it doesn't really protect anything and the space is infested with scammers. Unless you really want to support something and you don't care about bleeding money, don't get into NFTs. Habbo's NFT project started with just selling interesting avatars in late 2021, but slowly morphed into a full-blown crypto-based hotel called Habbo X. Fernie turned into NFTs, credits turned into NFT credits, and even your mom became an NFT. A bunch of weird things happened in the project, but to me the initial avatar launch is still one of the strangest. Buyers couldn't see the character they were bidding on in the OpenSea auction and had to wait a week until the big avatar reveal day. However, they couldn't even use it in normal Habbo, and the randomly created character only had one NFT exclusive item guaranteed. So you couldn't copy someone's style completely with pleb items because that wouldn't be very blockchain of you. People knew that, and the collection of 10,000 NFTs still sold out within 2 days for $6 million total. Who likes Habbo that much? The following releases were more or less capitalizing on FOMO, either by being exclusive to avatar holders or offering early bird perks for a steep price, like a $2,000 virtual room that can generate NFTs. In the distant future, because selling already implemented features is not the crypto way, but gambling definitely is. Instead of fighting it, Habbo X supports charging fees for entering rooms and playing games. You don't even need to handle Fernie bets yourself anymore. Automated price dispensers will do it for you. Also, don't worry about selling your Fernie for real money. Habbo already legalized its black market by building an NFT exchange straight into the game. Though on paper the new hotel was everything players ever wanted, minus the NFT part, it flopped colossally. With every announcement, people grew more skeptical and ratioed Habbo's tweets, while cussing Zulaki out for besmirching their childhood. So when Habbo X's beta launched in December of 2022, less than 1,000 avatar holders logged in, Habbo's NFT value crashed completely and the project's roadmap derailed. I guess they've given up on pay to earn is the future of gaming. Thankfully. So where does this leave us now? Habbo was one of the original metaverses and arguably better in 2001 than whatever Meta is putting out now. Yikes. Yet instead of going back to their chaotic MMO roots and improving their own metaverse, Zulaki plans to build a new and exciting Habbo on an existing one. No matter what they do, I hope they can scratch that same itch again that old Habbo with all its quirky Fernie and games could. And a ton of people think the same. When Twitter almost went under at the end of 2022, surprisingly many people announced they'd switch to Habbo. Of course, most memed on it, but the game isn't forgotten. Even though Habbo hasn't recovered from Zulaki's ban waves and bad updates, its loyal community is still going strong and definitely not full of children anymore. So just like in the beginning, the hotel is filled again with bartering, inappropriate content, and the most bizarre roleplay you could ever imagine. I'm looking at you, Twilight. Like any MMO, Habbo had a plethora of scams. If you played any online games in your childhood, you've encountered all of them, because those techniques work in every single game. Be it Neopets' paintbrush scams, because no one could tell plushies and actual brushes apart, or someone claiming they can trim your armor and double anything you give them in RuneScape. You couldn't escape the scams, and you never got your items back. Most cons weren't even sophisticated, but relied on social engineering. Scammers sneakily asked security questions like, what's the name of of your pet or convince victims that their password will be censored if they typed it backward in the chat. And they totally had to try it. You wouldn't want to miss an Easter egg or mod rights, do you? Fake staff members also work tirelessly to tell you that so many players have voted for you on a random fan site. But upon signing up with your credentials, your account was stolen and the promised free coins were a lie. Yet some scammers played an even longer con. After becoming your friend, they'd urge you to borrow expensive items because you can trust them, and you knew them for 2 weeks already.
I trust Reap though, don't worry.
Spoiler alert, you can't trust anyone saying trust me. Trust me. Even player-run games weren't safe, especially when big Fernie stakes were involved. Between rounds of Falling Fernie, which is Habbo's version of musical chairs, eliminated players could pay to stay or kick someone else, which led to bizarre fights of parties outbidding each other to continue. Just like in arcades, you could never trust a room owner to hand over prizes because they could just kick anyone after winning. Scarily enough, the scheme worked on simple games like Danger Zone or Fridge Races, but also complex mazes with teleporters across multiple rooms. The latter was often used for giveaway scams in which randomizers decided how participants proceeded. Solving the maze had a probability of less than 1%, so naturally, Habbo's monetized fast-track lanes for anyone desperate enough to win the extremely rare prizes. Though scams like these seem easy to spot, mostly kids were affected by them, and learned for the very first time that the world can be a brutal place, with devastating effects because players spend a lot of time and their parents' money for items that were irreversibly gone within seconds. Even when whole agencies randomly changed hands, Soulaki didn't care. They seemingly gave up after the 2007 Fernie thefts and dismissed hacks and scams as user errors. It's your fault because you agreed to the trade or gave your account away. Yeah, I really enjoy getting robbed in my free time, Soulaki. Not all scams were even user-run. One of Habbo's most notorious scandals, the Habottery, was a semi-official giveaway in 2004 promoted by hotel manager Jibby and set up by another user called Reem. As the name suggests, players could bet their Fernie on numbers to win thrones. But when the Dice Masters were rolled, Reem ran off with 40 thrones worth $2,500 and blamed Jibby via sticky notes she left in her virtual room. A few weeks before the scam, Reem notified Jibby of a glitch with Habbo's prepaid splash card processing, which allowed UK players to receive credits without getting charged. Since Soulaki reversed transactions and banned splash users, Reem's illegitimate credits were removed. But she was convinced that other players could keep theirs and swore revenge on Jibby, which sadly worked because Jibby was forced to compensate players and left Soulaki. Raise your hands if you didn't think Habbo would have strange whodunits. Over the years, Habbo amassed quite a few of money glitches, like selling Fernie for 0 credits or gold bars with bulk discounts. However, in 2017, a player discovered a disastrous exploit within the hotel's credit dispensation client, Offertoro. Codes you entered in the Sandbox Hotel to receive infinite credits for testing purposes worked in the normal game too. So they told their friends, bought massive amount of rares together, and gifted multiple million credits to other players to divert attention, as you do when you embezzle money. But their shopping spree had already hiked item prices up, and players started flipping Fernie worth a few dollars for thousands. Even crazier, people bought items on the black market to sell it in-game because it was so profitable. Naturally, Soulaki noticed, banned the involved players, and rolled back the servers like the little party poopers they are. Hacking itself was a huge problem. Because Habbo didn't have any defense against brute force attacks like two-factor authentication, valuable accounts regularly got stolen by people checking usernames against common passwords. It also didn't help that Habbo graciously displayed player names for login attempts and had multiple user database breaches. Hackers looking for an infinite real money scam had a field day on Habbo and even subcontracted others to steal accounts for them. Work smart, not hard. Which is exactly why Finch himself chose a more direct approach to Habbo heists and hacked into housekeeping, Habbo's moderation controls, so he could steal anyone's Fernie, give away thousands of dollars in credits and rares, and access staff accounts, until he was detained and put under house arrest. No Habbo jail for him, he had to go to the real deal. Like fellow hacker Jakes, who created public rooms by causing server-side errors, developed private, albeit illegal servers, and cracked Habbo's encryption. After he was arrested in London, his bail documents leaked on fan sites, and he announced that he had to serve 100 hours of community service for his Habbo crimes. Thankfully, some exploits weren't malicious but goofy, like the 2008 chainmail incident. Thousands of players received a mini-mail, Habbo's in-game email service, from Habbo's famous founder Mark Zuckerberg himself, asking them to prove that their accounts were active by sending the message to at least 15 other Habbos. If they didn't comply, their accounts would be deleted because the game was overpopulated. For some reason, variations of this message exist in every online game and social network. I swear I've gotten 10 different versions of it so far. Players naturally panicked in awe of the suck smiting down their account, so the mini-mail was spammed to almost every user. Of course, Habbo staff pointed out an obvious flaw. Mark Zuckerberg isn't the founder of Habbo. He's the CEO of MySpace Dummies. Let's address the stingray in the pool. When you clicked on this video, you've probably expected me to talk about Habbo's infamous raids. After all, Internet Historian made a video about them, and they are so ingrained in online popular culture. So much so that pools closed memes are still somewhat relevant, and people who never played Habbo know about them. Quick warning, this section contains sensitive content, so again, please skip to the timestamp below if you're uncomfortable. However, 4chan neither started nor ended the raids. In 2001, Something Awful forum members started raiding the game as the pretend Gino cult. Followers of Gino had to dress in all grey, renounce their hair along with their individuality, and spread the word of the grey path to Habbo's sinful players, because color is the harbinger of evil and chaos. So they changed the username to some variation of Gino, swarmed popular rooms, and blocked users from going anywhere by forming grey path-like lines. Habbo didn't allow players to pass through each other, so they could peacefully block players from escaping while chanting cryptic messages about the grey light. Like any good Habbo raid, Gino gatherings took the hotel down for a few hours. Obviously, Habbo cracked down on them pretty quickly, and even Boba filtered the path, but as the unhinged Gino scripture demands, bans are just oppression, so thou shalt spread the path to mods by finding their accounts on other websites, until you can log in again. Unsettling players wasn't enough. Gino's goal was always to convince people they were an actual religion, so they created hoax websites filled with ancient testaments to prove that they've been around for the past 2,000 years. The whole thing is a wild ride and features some sci-fi writing gems like the path is quantum ether, but it worked. Players speculated on their motives and origins on message boards in the early 2000s, and later turned the cult into a sinister urban legend. As a downside of their infamy, Gino were kicked out of rooms. Thus, during one of the notorious 2003 raids, an offshoot sect, the Jondites, spread the color of happiness and enlightenment, yellow, to help Gino escape prosecution. Unlike Gino, they were even allowed to party, show emotions, and wear funny headbands like the bunny ears of protection. While large Gino raids haunted Habbo Hotel until 2006, Something Awful found another target. Solaki's virtual world for Coca-Cola, Coke Music. Since its currency decibels could only be obtained by finding and drinking Coke cans throughout its music studios, Something Awful members planned to reenact the Jonestown tragedy. Instead of poisoned Kool-Aid, Gino followers downed cola at 7 PM and locked out of their accounts forever. Coke Music was even more kid-centric than Habbo Hotel, so many players were scared by the event, and some even believed they've actually hurt themselves in real life. Something Awful really lived up to its name. Also, don't look at the original thread if you're not prepared for something even worse: shock images. Inspired by Something Awful, 4chan created its own problematic raids, which would later eclipse any of Habbo's controversies in terms of notoriety. So let me set the stage for them. The year is 2006. Pluto is not a planet anymore, and you were just fired from your Habbo bartending job of 2 hours. Things couldn't get any worse for teenage you, so you do what every sad Habbo does: go to the Lido Dex pool only to find it's closed again. On July 6, members of 4chan's B-board blocked off access to every Habbo pool while spamming the infamous phrase "pools closed" to protest the allegedly racist mods. Their source was infallible. A popular 4chan meme claimed Habbo mods arbitrarily banned non-white characters. Naturally, blockers wouldn't let this slide, so they swarmed hotels as dark-skinned avatars in suits with afro hairstyles and sieged the pools globally for one night. In response, Habbo suspended their accounts on site, which be used as evidence to propagate the meme. Thus, on July 12, blockers had to close the pools again, because they detected AIDS in the water. Pool rooms were quickly secured, so after players formed the parent health and safety symbol, thousands of blockers spread to nearly every public room and barricaded the whole hotel. Since not even NPCs could escape, Sulaki disabled registrations with the error message, "Sorry, pool's closed, sad smiley face," banned the word AIDS, and finally took the hotel offline for a few hours. Though many accounts were lost in a second ban wave, blockers learned to outsmart mods, or at least outspeed them with new account registrations. So smaller raids thwarted Habbo's events throughout the summer. In the last-ditch effort, staff resorted to reverse psychology. They thanked lame raiders for their free publicity and invited them to stay for 24 hours without consequences. Contrary to their assumptions, blockers didn't get bored, so a few hours into their bargain, mods banned everyone approaching the pool. However, Habbo's water supply faced another crisis. Following animal handler Steve Irwin's death from a stingray attack on September 4th, hundreds of Habbos hosted various virtual funerals, while stingrays apparently infested the pools. So on September 11th, Gaia, Newsground, and other 4chan adjacent sites joined forces to protect players from AIDS, stingrays, and the widely feared stingrays, which are of course AIDS-infected stingrays. Despite the massive success of this raid, follow-up and anniversary sieges never reached the same level. Staff banning anyone wearing the official uniform, and 4chan focusing on a pool's closed-inspired griefing group on Second Life were partially to blame. But right before another large raid happened in 2009, Habbo fixed player collisions, meaning avatars couldn't block each other anymore. With their purpose rendered pointless, raiders split into different fractions, like gingers, skinheads, or communists, until Habbo finally closed its pools in 2011 by removing all public rooms. Or did they? As raids slowly fizzled out on Habbo, they extended to the real world. Blockers marched to Sulaki's headquarters in their uniform to create a swastika, attended multiple anime conventions to close off areas like bathrooms, and even went to a Habbo-sponsored Teen Choice concert to get their promotion laptop's IP banned. Real-life trolling quickly spiraled even more out of control as people called local pools and claimed they cut their leg in the water, and now it's infested with AIDS. If a pool didn't have the infamous "pools closed due to AIDS" sign, people would put multiple up for them. This disgusted a Texan resident in 2008 who thought the sign promoted discrimination. After notifying the police and news stations, 4chan's full wrath came after her. Every interview was turned into a meme. She was doxxed and received countless prank calls, insults, and threats.
Get off the news.
Someone even posted a pool's open version of the original meme with her face on a local pool fence, because she unfortunately had curly hair. Despite police confiscating the sign and taking fingerprints, the culprit was never found, and the internet continued harassing her for months, just because she didn't get a meme. Fast forward to the Channel 4 scandal, and diminishing player numbers started a raid renaissance. Blockers realized they only needed large and annoying groups to overtake the hotel, and players found ways to glitch back into old public rooms. So as soon as the chat returned, everyone knew that stingrays were still in the pool, along with child enthusiasts. As for Sulaki, they acknowledged the raids as part of Habbo's culture, and released limited Afro Raid Fernie in 2015. They even included an Afro duck commemorating a viral screenshot from the original raids of a blocker hiding behind a duck statue. If you haven't noticed, ducks are a huge meme in Habbo because they're cheap collectibles and there are so many novelty versions of them. Due to popular demand and mostly player pushback, many public rooms, including the pools, were turned in 2017. Though the numbers of raiders dwindled, more than 10,000 people stormed Habbo dressed as Bob Ross during Crocodi's 2018 invasion to celebrate pools closed once again. What a happy and chaotic ending. Habbo and Tumblr always had one thing in common besides coin. Almost every fandom was somehow represented on them. Whether you wanted to start your Pokemon adventure, solve mysteries as the Scooby-Doo crew, or join a wolf pack, there was always at least one Habbo group for you, and hundreds of people role-playing. Role-playing was one of Habbo's main attractions, and calling some of these settings anything less than intricate would be a disservice. There are multiple perfect replicas of Hogwarts with potion classes, Quidditch, and Wizard of the Week competitions, and the best part is, J.K. Rowling doesn't get a single penny. Don't worry if you have more weebish inclinations. There are tuning exam roleplays from Naruto. I know where I'm going after this, but like everything on Habbo, roleplay had a dark side. One interesting genre centered around running functioning businesses like hospitals, armies, and McDonald's, the three pillars of society. Yet joining these agencies was like working a soul-crushing minimum wage Habbo job. Just look at this kid, he's probably only 10 and has already given up on life. For around $1 to $3 per 2-hour shift, employees weren't allowed to dance or AFK and had to accommodate customers. Their overlords regularly checked in on them, so players moved around periodically to look busy and semi-alive. Whenever the boss gave them a prompt, they had to answer immediately with rehearsed phrases, because how else could you tell that someone was really working? This gives me flashbacks to my summer jobs. However, you could climb the agency's hierarchy and get more interesting tasks by recruiting more people. Sounds very pyramid-y, but players didn't have to pay to join. Well, unless you instantly wanted a leadership role and skip every promotion, then you'd have to pay thousands of dollars. It's pretty bleak that agencies finance their employees' paychecks by selling power to other Habbos. But at least they got big name on Habbo status and access to gate-protected VIP rooms out of it. And allegedly agency jobs weren't half bad for finding friends, because bonding over hating a job is a universal experience. If you've ever played Club Penguin, you'll know the Pookies. Players who larped as baby penguins and acted as annoying as a human toddler. Although they were almost unanimously hated, they also infested Habbo. Habbo babies dressed and acted like young children, so they cried "Wah!" in chat, over-explained their asterisk actions with tons of emojis, and if they could speak, added more W's in any word than the average Nico comment. Naturally, Habbo babies can't take care of themselves, so a lot of them wanted to get adopted by wealthy parents to get a credit allowance. They were literal Fernie babies. Instead of hanging out in schools or kidcore agencies, they'd wait in adoption rooms. Even if humanoid babies aren't your thing, you could adopt players LARPing as pets in these rooms. They aren't crying as much, but they might look creepy and talk. Why wouldn't you get a normal Habbo pet? They are so damn cute. Since Habbo babies had a thing for flooding rooms and spamming repetitive uwu phrases, many players hated their guts and tried to bully them off the platform. Thus, their accounts were often reported for scamming because they received credits for nothing and surely extorted their parents. I get that Habbo babies can be irritating and weird people out, but that treatment isn't Genki. If you don't like someone and they're not hurting anyone, just block them and move on. Yet a lot of Habbos didn't get this and sadly resorted to cyberbullying. Multiple studies conducted on Habbo in the early 2010s found that around 70% of minors faced regular harassment in the game and were ridiculed because of their IRL looks. Passing pictures around, stalking players across other websites, and threatening to dox them were normalized in some groups. A few Habbo mafias were especially infamous for this, because their members thought they had to scare people and overtake other agencies to be part of an influential online gang. Believing you're an imaginative crime lord in a kids game is totally not sad. Jealousy and territorial fights between popular Habbos often escalated into hotel-wide hate campaigns. In one instance, a wealthy casino owner quit the game because her fellow gambling moguls rallied hundreds of players against her. Similarly, when Buddy, a player known for being mean to others, was crowned Mr. Habbo in 2004, We Hate Buddy groups protested in the hallways. Groups that only trash rooms suddenly seemed normal and well-adjusted. Harassment wasn't limited to players. The community generally had a bizarre relationship with staff. If they didn't come up with unhinged conspiracy theories about former hotel managers returning as evil new accounts or employees being pregnant, they'd bully disliked staff into quitting Habbo. Like many others, the hotel manager Kelly was scrutinized for giving preferential treatment, mod rights, and unreleased rares to her non-staff friends. However, after she apparently stole Fernie from another employee's account to sell it on eBay and caused a mini economic crisis by re-releasing limited rares, players called for her resignation in large protests. So when Hex revealed that she was too young to be staff and probably had a second account that was infamous for dating a popular Habbo, Kali left for good. Since staff was part of the hotel's lore, Habbo didn't just silently replace anyone. They wrote them off like characters in a show. During the 2009 Halloween Haunted House campaign, the US hotel manager Crash Carson and his assistant Loda Zay went missing and never returned. Both got a nice farewell because they were let go due to budget cuts. Meanwhile, Bucho6, who was hated for threatening players with bans and handing out limited rares, was swallowed by goo. What a slimy way to go. Speaking of events, a lot of Habbo's campaigns were promotions for brands with limited item releases, themed rooms, and special quests. Anything to hide boring in-game ads. Even though fans adored sponsored content, which is probably a first, Habbo received backlash for including advertisements in a kids game. Branded Fernie wasn't free of controversy either, because it was often limited to one hotel. So players scripted popular collabs like the Mountain Dew machine into their server, which led to everyone drinking the dew subsequently getting banned and Habbo re-releasing the machine as a Coke promotion. What a betrayal. Nonetheless, the list of Habbo collabs continued to grow and was full of obvious suspects like My Scene, Hannah Montana, and Batman, but also included some interesting collabs, particularly the Teletubbies, Durex, and OB. Needless to say, those weren't as popular as the Cheeto promo, and players who found them early thought it was a glitch. I don't blame them. My personal favorite were the over-the-top campaigns like Capri Sun's theme park, and of course Twilight, because the franchise is such a meme, and the whole quest revolved around role-playing, which obviously required spending credits to recreate scenes perfectly. Never change, Habbo, never change. Still, Avatar: The Last Airbender had the most fitting promo since players could join one of the 4 nations in a competition, but then everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked, and fire ended up burning down the whole competition. I can't just skip over Habbo's celebrity visits because they are such a weird nostalgic time capsule of 2000s pop culture. Between 2004 and 2016, mostly popular musicians like Carly Rae Jepsen, Owl City, Lenka, and the Backstreet Boys graced Habbo's halls with fan meetups and Q&As. Think of them as Reddit AMA predecessors, but with funky outfits so you could recognize Paramore and the Gorillaz. Though they sound like a good time, I mean Draco Malfoy visited Habbo, they were pure mayhem. Fans flooded public rooms 24 hours in advance and got kicked from the game because the hotel lagged. At least the spectator function worked, sometimes. Although Habbo directly worked on player-hosted events with official fan sites like Habtendo, in which Habbo Quest replicated part of popular Nintendo games as immersive puzzle rooms, Sodaki hated nothing more than unofficial projects or private servers. Retro hotels offered players access to older Habbo versions, unlimited free credits, modified Fernie, and dedicated roleplay servers without the pesky Habbo way. But since they easily hit 1,000 concurrent visitors, Sodaki feared they'd miss out on significant profits and send them cease and desist letters, which is honestly quite common for MMOs. However, the owners of the original Retro were sick of legal threats. After finally taking down the server, they open sourced their code on multiple Habbo scripting sites. Sodaki's plan completely backfired as more people than ever could start their own contraband Habbo copies, and scripters found a new testbed for their exploits. Shortly after, Sodaki hosted multiple Say No to Retro campaigns highlighting the dangers of unofficial Habbo sites. While some claims were exaggerated, fan sites and retro drama was genuinely scary. Some had a history of installing keyloggers on their users' devices and launching cyber attacks against their competitors. No way I'm signing up for that. Habbo had plenty of issues, but it would be wrong to dismiss its good parts, like incentivizing creativity and giving people communities who wouldn't find them otherwise. Many Habbos were ostracized offline for being different, but found an understanding group of outcasts in vampire clans and wolf packs. Creating a picture-perfect persona to become a big name on Habbo often helped players gain the confidence they needed, while roleplays provided escapes and coping mechanisms. Even bedbound players could meet friends on Habbo, like the community-beloved moderator Lil Ducky, who sadly passed away from leukemia. The game was important to people for so many reasons besides it's fun and colorful, and many found their soulmates or themselves through Habbo. Its community also played a major role in supporting young LGBTQ+ members. Simply role-playing as someone with different preferences or genders helped young adults figure out their identities, while cozy, safe spaces allowed them to ask questions. Also, what other platform has people filming Taylor Swift music videos, reenacting Lord of the Rings scenes, and an in-game music composition system that allowed players to distribute their own mixtapes? Minecraft. But Habbo also had its own virtual DJ Fuse, who sold physical CDs. So checkmate Notch and move over Miku Hatsune. There's a new idol online. Every larger franchise has lost media, and Habbo has some of the strangest. Sodaki's first steps, or should I say missteps, into the MOBA market were an unmitigated disaster. It all started with the single-player RPG Habbo Islands, which should have expanded the hotel's lore with quests like taking care of animals and treasure hunting. However, it was never released because Sulaki built it for Nokia's dying Engage platform. All that's left of it now are cracked E3 demo booths. So they followed up with cursed Habbo-fied copycats of popular games like Super Mario, a Tamagotchi clone with strange Furby-like aesthetics, and something that can only be described as an anxiety simulator. Why would I want to roleplay escaping a nightmare and pay $5 for it? Because none of those games were free. After every minigame failed, Sulaki thankfully put a hold on mobile development so they could focus on their collaboration with Disney on the virtual Magic Kingdom of VMK in 2005. Though the project successfully promoted the parks, its creation and downfall was a total mess. For once, the idea wasn't new, since Disney had already planned a massive 7-disc DVD game back in 1996, but never completed it. However, the plot of villains taking over the park and dooming everyone wasn't scrapped, just turned into the Kingdom Keepers book series a decade later. And wouldn't you know, the book's characters use Sulaki's VMK to rendezvous in the parks and fight against evil. I thought meetup requests were forbidden on VMK. Secondly, they commissioned a Habbo version of Disneyland, complete with replicas of the park's layouts, shops, rides, mini-games, and the dreaded chat. Maybe that's why Club Penguin had restricted messaging. It was suspiciously released later in the same year, and even Wikipedia notes that people regularly offended VMK values. It wouldn't be a Sulaki game without heavy monetization, so naturally you could do fun quests like finding 50 hidden Mickeys to win prizes at the actual parks. But in order to take pictures of them, you'd have to buy film for credits. This really carbon dates the game. Thankfully, some mini-games gave you free credits, so you could complete tasks by cheesing the hell out of them. Finally, Sulaki staff hated working with Disney. Allegedly, artists weren't allowed to use classic characters like Donald because Imagineers deemed them not popular enough. But really, they probably only wanted to protect them in case the game failed. So Sulaki staff hid them in backgrounds along with sinister jokes like LCD panels reading "Prepare to destroy Disneyland" and flashing rockets. Since no one noticed, the team continued their shenanigans out of spite because Disney prohibited them from talking about the project or using it in their portfolios after the launch. Not giving people credit is not a good Mickey move, Disney. As soon as the collaboration ended in 2008, Disney announced the shutdown of VMK. This puzzled fans because the game was quite popular and received regular updates from Sulaki. But it had to be done as it was cannibalizing Toontown, another virtual Disney world. Stay tuned for that video, it's a similarly wild ride. Still, as many fans have pointed out, the decision was utterly stupid. VMK did an amazing job at marketing new Disney park products and connecting the fandom. Naturally, fans were angry, started online petitions to bring VMK back, and gathered outside the parks to protest. It's nice to see that some Habbo things never changed, but less than 20 people showed up. So it was more like a VMK grieving meetup. Since Disney did everything to silence rumors about the game's return, fans recreated VMK themselves. Today, private servers are still up and foster a loyal community of former players. Thankfully, Disney isn't hunting them down with lawsuits yet. RIP Club Penguin rewritten. Though Habbo is mostly known as a cursed kids game and the Stingrays, it's an extremely interesting MMO with a wonderful community underneath all its controversies and dangerous cesspools. Its ill-defined Habbo way and constant content updates allowed players to become anything they wanted and express themselves in ways they often couldn't, and sometimes better shouldn't. No, but seriously, anyone who's ever logged into the perfectly themed world of Habbo knows its pixel art magic. It didn't matter if you struggled to make friends in real life, needed some escapism, or just wanted to explore the world from your bedroom. Habbo made it easy and gave us a place of belonging, and a sense of danger because we were all doing things we weren't supposed to, like playing the game stealthily in the dead of night or stalking our first crush online. I remember being excited about getting home from elementary school, running straight to my uncle's computer, logging into Habbo, checking out cool rooms, and talking to my 2 friends in secret. Because obviously I wasn't allowed to talk to strangers online, and as long as I kept that promise, I got credits. Just looking at the landing page makes me irrationally nostalgic, and I know that so many other people have made unforgettable memories on Habbo. So seeing its community getting ripped apart by Sulaki's greed is just sad. All the once bustling rooms are now abandoned and reduced to being quirky time capsules of the past 2 decades. Nonetheless, I'm glad that fan sites and hobby drama posts preserve the good and bad sides of Habbo, while its remaining community keeps the game alive. And who knows, maybe one day there'll be another Habbo renaissance, with no crypto scams and more focus on its community. Thanks again Surfshark for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to check them out, and don't forget to subscribe or else Chunkachu won't hug you. I hope you liked the video and that it either reminded you of your childhood MMO days or introduced you to the weird controversies of the internet's most infamous kids game. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next one. Don't fall down.